Ariana Grande, for a long time in pop culture, has been a very divisive figure. From her donut licking scandal that was a whole decade ago in 2015 when she was just coming up as an artist, to more recently being implicated in an affair with her Wicked co star Ethan Slater, who looks eerily like her brother, and even more crap in between, like trying to be seen as mixed and cultural appropriation. It's a lot. And because of all this controversy, she's become very disliked over the years, with almost 200,000 dedicated anti fans on the Reddit page Ariana Grande Snark. And in some ways, I get the hate. Ariana Grande, someone who has profited off of cultural appropriation and racial ambiguity, who decided that no longer suited her for the role of Glinda, is now blonde and fully white. She decided to shed her darker and edgier pop star image in order to be taken seriously in the world of musical theater, and on top of all of that, she is physically very frail and has undergone such a big physical transformation that to a lot of anti fans, this was a very calculated move in order to distance herself from any former valid criticism about her years of appropriation. And though I disagree that this was intentional, I can see how it really frustrates people because it means that she got away with it. Like tens of other artists before her, from Post Malone to Miley Cyrus and Iggy Azalea, she dropped cultural appropriation when it was no longer convenient. So I get the outrage. On the other hand, in my mind, these anti-fans are wasting their time. Demanding justice from celebrities by shaming them on a Reddit snark page, I don't know, is that the best way to spend your finite moments on this planet? Concocting conspiracy theories about someone you don't even know? I get wanting to hold celebrities accountable, and I think we should continue to do that. That's the least we can do as an audience who are subjected to their art and public presence. But the reality is that celebrities are so far removed from our plebeian existence, it seems almost futile and silly at this point. I honestly think we will never get a formal acknowledgement for the appropriation and Asian and blackfishing stuff. If that happens, I would be very surprised. And I honestly think it's really inappropriate to demand justice or answers for someone's weight loss and dramatic physical changes. But conversely, I also get the need to talk about it. So in this video, that's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to talk about the implications of celebrity and touch on the larger weight loss discourse that has overshadowed the Wicked press tour and has become a main point of contention amongst both fans and anti-fans and everyone in between. Lastly, I'll discuss the different standards placed on fat versus thin bodies that make it so hard to have these nuanced conversations about weight loss to begin with. And please note, in this video, I will be discussing eating disorders, so please proceed with caution and feel free to click out of the video at any time. Also note that these are just my thoughts and opinions based on my own reading and research as someone who is privileged as a relatively thin person, so please check out other creators like Hyla Says, who has also covered this topic. Additionally, we'll also be discussing the topic of misogynoir and anti-black racism when it comes to Cynthia Erivo, and how some audience members are mocking her relationship with Grande. I also want to say that I like a lot of Ariana Grande's music. Her Sweetener cover inspired me to draw again and pick up portraiture, and I've drawn her many times since. At the same time, I'm not really a fan of her as an individual, as I don't know her and I'm not into celebrities like that, but the cultural appropriation and Asian fishing thing did really bother me at the time. But now, as a 30-year-old, I just don't have the energy to try to demand answers from her about that. I just kind of hope it never happens again. So thank you in advance for watching, and now on to the video. So, like I said in the intro, when it comes to anti-fans, Ariana Grande has almost 200,000 people dedicated to picking her apart online in a Snark forum. Snark forums are basically spaces for people to hate on certain individuals with others who equally hate them. It's unfiltered, and though there's some moderation, really anything goes. And for the past month or so, I've been lurking quite a bit on there, and I've come to the obvious conclusion that the Ariana Grande Snark page is extremely toxic and harmful. If you have no idea who Ariana Grande was and just took this page at face value, you'd think that she was like the devil incarnate. I'm not even Ariana Grande, but I feel like I'm digitally hurting myself by reading mean thing after mean thing about her online that people have to say. And honestly, after reading what people do have to say about her, it makes me really sympathize with her, despite not really being a diehard fan like that. I think an anti-fan would probably think that her little fragile baby act is working on me and that I've been brainwashed, instead of just realizing I'm exhibiting basic human empathy. What I find especially gross is when people post about how she's not allowed to talk about how the Manchester bombing or the death of Mac Miller affected her, and that she always makes it about herself. More recently, they said that the troll who jumped on her at the Singapore premiere of Wicked wasn't that bad. I can't find the exact post, but I do remember when it happened, one Snark comment was saying that it wasn't that bad, slash, it's just going to be used to make her more sympathetic, and that for the sake of not doing that, we should just gloss over the fact that it even happened. Essentially, anything that happens to her or anything that she does is automatically hated by them and just pisses them off. And I get that we can hate on celebrities for doing certain things, as they are publicly facing people who make their wealth by not only being public facing, but interacting with and impacting us as both consumers and audience members. And unfortunately, part of what being famous means is withstanding abuse from people you don't even know. That's the deal with the devil. Celebrities can't hide behind hedge funds or private equity to accrue millions, they have to be known to the masses. Broy Deschanel did a whole video about this a while ago that I'll put here. Your life essentially is no longer yours, and haters are gonna hate, but I cannot imagine dedicating so much of my time in a hate community dedicated to shaming an artist for existing or having feelings about traumatic events that have happened to them. That's not to say that all celebrities are victims, some can be very toxic and awful, but fan and audience entitlement is real, and celebrities have recently clapped back that they're not out here for your amusement. But downplaying these incidents that have happened to Grande serves a larger purpose in the Snark community, especially post Wicked, where Grande has seemingly repaired her image as a cultural appropriator by becoming a fragile white woman. These Redditors don't want people to forget who she really is. And to them, who she really is an evil master manipulator, a home wrecker, who they think is addicted to substances, who picks up and drops trends and friends as soon as they don't fit her aesthetic. They claim she and her stans use incidences like the Singapore troll incident and even the Manchester bombing to infantilize her and make her into a small bean who needs protecting and who all of a sudden wants to be a little baby when wasn't she just singing about her bag and that she gets whatever she wants? 6 rings for all of her bitches. To this subreddit, Ariana Grande must be revealed for the evil witch she really is, and it sucks how so many things have happened to her to make her more sympathetic to the public and now will never be believed, especially since she has this dramatic weight loss transformation that makes her even more vulnerable. To them, this was all cleverly calculated. And for me personally, I don't think it's that deep. It's just the typical culture appropriator to born again white person pipeline. And in some respects, I get part of their angle. Like, it is very concerning that she was able to dabble into looking mixed or wanting to be mixed, as well as co-opting this kawaii aesthetic in order to seem different or get street cred or seem exotic, and then just move on from that without so much as a second glance. On the other hand, don't people just hate her more now since she started this innocent white girl thing? Like, which is it? Is she garnering public sympathy by changing her appearance, or do the rumors and speculation about her personal life and appearance make her less beloved in the eyes of the public? Because in many ways, I think Grande is side-eyed even more now than ever because of her physicality, not just shedding her old tanner image, but because of her weight loss. I don't think people are being kinder to her. In fact, I don't think she's ever been this hated for being a home wrecker, for being a bad influence to little girls because of her weight, for being fake due to her ever-changing appearance, etc. To me, it's honestly sad that her weight loss, something that is very deeply personal, is what makes people angry at her, and not years and years of over tanning and Asian fishing and using the kawaii aesthetic, but okay, I guess. So Ariana Grande's rebrand of being a delicate pastel blonde that coincided with her portraying Glinda in Wicked was already concerning considering how much she did dabble in trying to come off as ambiguous racially, but for me her wanting to now be perceived as the white woman she is became even more apparent during the Wicked press tour and premieres, where she stands alongside her co-star Cynthia Erivo, a black actress and singer from London, and who is one award away from reaching EGOT status. For all the horrible things in the Snark page, some posters do make a point to talk about how Ariana Grande fans can be incredibly racist by making memes of how Cynthia Erivo is Grande's protector, and in some viral videos and images, posters depict her either as a mammy figure or as an animal or even a black man, harking back to a racist history of black women needing to protect white women, like as a mammy figure reminiscent of the Help, or a savage beast, or as being less female than white women. There's a long history, for example, of racial and gender discrimination in female sports that depict non-white women as being more beastly or more manly if they don't fit the very thin definition of what it means to be a woman in white society, i.e. smaller than a man, weaker than a man, in order to uphold white femininity as the only true femininity. This was illustrated during the 2024 Paris Olympics, in which Iman Khalif, a cis woman boxer, faced transphobia and racism from fellow athletes and politicians for simply being the best in her sport. If you happen to be better than a man in a sport or even better than a white woman in a sport and you're not white, your femininity is immediately questioned. That's what happened happens when we have such strict definitions of race and gender that serve white patriarchy, in which even white women like Grande benefit by upholding traditional, i.e., white womanhood. Through the role of Glinda, she was able to cleverly move away from her problematic past as someone trying to pass herself off as mixed or exotic, as well as wash away any claims of appropriation by embracing her whiteness. But Erivo, as a dark-skinned black woman born in London to Nigerian immigrant parents, doesn't have whiteness to fall back on, and instead makes intentional choices to confront patriarchal beauty standards like shaving her head and having long nails. Cynthia has been on the receiving end of really vile jokes from audience members about how she's debasing herself for Grande or that she is her demon mother protector without taking into account that we don't know the ins and outs of these people's relationship. And yeah, the interviews they do together are a little quirky, but we don't know their professional relationship, so stop acting like you do. Ariana Grande, at the time I'm recording this, hasn't spoken up about the racism Cynthia has faced publicly, but we don't know if there's anything private going on between them. She could have reached out privately. Should she make a public statement to audiences about that? In my opinion, it would be helpful. Fans have seen that her brother liked one of the racist videos featuring Erivo and also this racist caricature of Michelle Yeoh, so there's that. But at the same time, is she responsible for her brother's actions? Should she say something? Some people think she should. I think again it would be helpful, and her silence to me does speak volumes, but how long are we going to be demanding better from her before we just realize that we are not in control of what she does and what celebrities do, and we should just not look up to them and give them so much grace? Simultaneously, she is a public figure with people looking up to her and with a large platform to influence people. We can't say that she's such an influential artist, but then has no sway when it comes to shutting down hateful remarks or taking a political stance. But sadly, I felt this kind of racist bullshit was always bound to happen since the casting came out. The optics of having a conventionally attractive white blonde woman and a non-conventionally attractive black woman standing side by side triggers audiences because it makes it out as some sort of competition of who is more beautiful. And they seem to be very much aware of this, which is why they're so protective of one another and make sure to keep up a very united front, even though some fans, particularly anti-fans, call it cringe and fake. And I know this juxtaposition probably wasn't intentional by Universal Studios, director John Chu, or the casting agents, but it just feels like another adaptation that throws people of color to the wolves, like the reboot of that 70s show that was quietly canceled, or even Snow White with Rachel Ziegler. Even though Ziegler does see herself as a white Latina, that doesn't stop audiences from being racist and xenophobic towards her. And though Elphaba being black adds layers to her character, and I think it's great casting, especially as Elphaba is a character who stands up to fascism and injustice, when it comes to how the actress is treated by fans and dissenters, it's another story. It's hard to be paired next to a conventionally attractive blonde actress. It's hard to be a person of color, specifically a dark-skinned black woman, in the entertainment industry and not be compared to your peers, especially as a woman. So I do really applaud Cynthia Erivo for doing the role next to Grande, who has profited off of racial ambiguity for so long and who is now someone she's constantly going to be compared to. And this isn't to say that Cynthia isn't beautiful, of course she is, but rather what is considered beautiful by the wider society under white patriarchy isn't someone like Cynthia. And she again is aware of this and intentionally shaves her head to confront those standards. She also started shaving her head to make her wicked makeup process easier, and that's how it all started, with the shaved head and eyebrows. Because she liked it so much, she decided to stick with it. I should also note that Cynthia Erivo also has made disparaging remarks about Black Americans as someone from the UK. She specifically tweeted about ghetto accents. In a 2019 interview with Shadow and Act during the Toronto International Film Festival as a part of her press run as Harriet Tubman, Erivo shared, "I would say it took a lot of hard work to get to this place of playing Harriet Tubman, and I didn't take it lightly." She also said, "I love this woman and I love black people full stop. It would do me no service. It would be like hating myself." In addition to playing Harriet Tubman, a black American historical figure, as someone from the UK, she also has portrayed Aretha Franklin. A lot of people don't like that because why couldn't they cast a black American actress? So there's a conversation to be had there. I won't get into it here, but that's a reason why people dislike her. And I will say Wicked fans are more progressive and accepting, probably due to the message of the musical, which is good, but again, the wider society isn't, obviously as seen in the quote-unquote jokes surrounding Grande and Arriva's relationship, and even interviewers trying to bait her into some sort of trap.
When did you know you were tough? You're tough.
Am I?
I think so.
I mean, I think I'm strong.
Tough and strong.
I think I'm strong. I think I'm vulnerable. I think I'm a myriad of different things.
And it's especially telling when productions now are so eager to pander to progressive audiences, but who are also only doing that to try to increase profits, but then blame when profits tank on those people of color. But that also doesn't change the meaning in representation for young audiences to see Black Elphaba and how Elphaba can be a character that represents so many other marginalized groups as well. Again, this is no hate to Erivo and the casting choice, but rather I want to point out how sometimes cruel these diversity initiatives can be because they rarely take into account how just because we cast someone of color doesn't mean racism has gone away. From Manon in Cat's Eye to Halle Bailey as Ariel to John Boyega in Star Wars to now Cynthia Erivo in Wicked, these artists have to take on so much in a white dominated world and fandom space where audiences and even fans can be so cruel and racist, and I just think we should applaud them for doing what they do in the face of that. Especially Cynthia Erivo, who now has to sit next to and be compared to by audiences to this pillar of white soft womanhood that Grande has adopted. Though I will note, a lot of white women don't think Ariana Grande properly represents Glinda, especially anti-fans and snarkers, because they see her as ugly and having an effed up face and body. Some Redditors even feel the need to speculate that she is on drugs and mock her for that. There's this inherent competition between women under patriarchy where we see other women as our enemies, and this is even further under capitalism where everything is a competition, and also due to racism where there is a hierarchy of desirability, where white women get to use aesthetics from other cultures for profit and artistic inspiration and then dip out when that no longer suits them. And then they get to be coddled by fans by using their white womanhood to seem innocent and not at fault, whether intentionally or unintentionally. That is white privilege at work. It just so happens that Grande has actually been through a lot publicly that helps her garner sympathy, and honestly, a lot of that sympathy is deserved, but we also don't need it to be one or the other. We can acknowledge two truths at once that she's been through a lot, more than we know, and deserves privacy, but also that she tried to pass herself off as racially ambiguous for a lot of her career, and that she isn't a small bean. She's a career woman who has agency and made those choices, and people can still be angry and frustrated that we'll never get any closure with that. People are tired of celebrities getting away with it. And Grande just so happens to be the most public and recent one to do this in the mid 2020s. So that's part of the reason why she is so disliked, and I get that. To conclude, like I said before, the cast is aware of the competition we put on women, which is why the two want to show the opposite of that on press tours, and Cynthia Erivo is smart enough not to take the bait. And the two are probably friends or at least friendly in their personal lives, and I think we as onlookers shouldn't compare them or try to dissect their relationship, despite the film itself almost begging for us to compare them. They don't fall into that trap, and we shouldn't either. So, towards the end of part one, I mentioned how women are brought up to be in constant competition with one another. And this isn't even necessarily for men's attention, but for how we as women view one another. We're brought up to pick each other apart and to always try to be better than the other women in the room. This leads to, at times, an unhealthy body image, as thinness, equating to desirability, is pushed onto young girls through diet culture. There's this toxic mindset that some women internalize that whoever is the thinnest must be the happiest, the prettiest, because they're fulfilling patriarchal expectations of beauty and womanhood. They look like the women we see in the ads, and the models on runways wearing expensive clothes, and the pop singers we listen to. We learn that women should never take up too much space because that's unwomanly. Who gets lifted up in society? Thin women. Thin white women. Eating disorders thus can come about due to this competitive attitude that permeates our culture, at least in the US, where you need to keep up with the Joneses no matter what. Eating disorders are such a part of growing up as a preteen that it was even part of the Care and Keeping of You Body Guide series from American Girl, which discussed the differences between bulimia and anorexia. I remember reading that in middle school and just thinking of it as a how-to guide rather than a warning. I personally had an ED for 10 years from when I was 16 to 26. I was on those pro-Ana Tumblr blogs with the nothing tastes good as skinny feels slogans and all that crap. I remember even trying to follow the South Korean Idol sweet potato diet where you just subsist on a single sweet potato per day. I had a really horrible relationship with my body and food, and even had a friend who was in this with me, and we were both quote unquote dieting in high school, which led to me having body dysmorphia, among other things. Food noise or intrusive thoughts about food was something I struggled with for years, especially in college. But in the end, it was like this torturous and unsustainable cycle that I was finally able to get out of after I reached adulthood, mostly alone and through forming healthy relationships with those around me. Not everyone is that lucky. The road to recovery looks different for everyone. It's not linear. Eating disorders happen for a variety of reasons, and each person's is different. That was just my story. And as a tween and teen growing up in the early 2000s and 2010s, tabloids talking about eating disorders focused on Nicole Richie, Paris Hilton, and Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen. Most of the articles were sensationalized and only brought up their ED to either shame them for it or to make a spectacle about it to show how messed up they were without much empathy. I remember reading one interview as a kid with Nicole Richie from probably the early 2010s where she basically said that she was over it now because she probably just wanted the tabloids to leave her alone. So going into my research for this video, Richie has actually denied ever having an eating disorder, so my memory was totally wrong. She vehemently hated that speculation about her body and weight, and understandably so. I think the interview I remember reading was this 2006 article from Vanity Fair, when I was just like in middle school and starting puberty and starting to gain weight around areas I didn't have before, and that scared the crap out of me. And the American Girl Puberty book didn't help, and honestly, the celebrity speculation about someone's weight also didn't help. She and Paris Hilton were even mocked in Pink's Stupid Girls video for supposedly having an eating disorder. A lot of people in the public eye don't want their disorder to define them because it's reductive. So they in turn have to say that it's not a thing anymore to create this clear media narrative that I had an ED and now it's over, so let's just move on. We can't realistically talk about the lifelong implications of having an ED because it doesn't fit into that nice, neat narrative of how we want recovery to look like, where you're fucked up but now you're fine. Because then we would have to face the fact that life isn't that simple. And in the end, remembering these examples, it makes sense as to why celebrities are very private about weight loss and their appearance. It's incredibly hard to come out about having an ED even today. Imagine 15 years ago. And the reason I'm mentioning my own experience and this history of how celebrity EDs are portrayed to the public is because there's been a lot of talk online and speculation that the cast of Wicked, specifically Grande, Erivo, and Michelle Yeoh, have a competitive or even codependent eating disorder in which they're all trying to be the skinniest person on set. They're having a skinny off, as some people have joked. Others make memes of how much they're even allowed to eat on set. Some people wonder what John Chu did to them to make them this way. And I think it's important to start off by saying we don't know these people. We don't know what they're going through or why they have all dramatically lost weight while doing Wicked. They could be sick, they could be struggling with an ED, and it's gross and inappropriate to speculate about people's health, especially people we don't know. They don't want the public to know about what's happening, so we should just drop it. Stop feigning concern, stop continuing this long history of pop culture and media speculation and sensationalism that treats anyone who even has a rumor going around of having an ED as a damaged, fucked up person. Let people present their bodies as they are. On the other hand, I also think it would be remiss to not talk about the ways in which celebrity bodies impact and influence audiences through their art. Wicked and the press tour and celebrities are a public spectacle that we take part in. It's a communal thing where artists interact with and impact the public sphere. And that means people are going to notice how their appearance has changed and vocalize how that makes them feel. And sometimes it's done in a very demeaning and entitled way and in a way that is disingenuous. But personally, I just think we shouldn't ignore how it makes us feel. It makes sense why people are talking about it. Like, what is happening? But I guess all we can do in the end is take them at their word and follow their lead by not mentioning it. But for me, the dramatic weight loss the actors have exhibited actually did turn me off into watching Wicked because I don't want to see how thin Ariana Grande is. It actually makes me sad to see her that way, and honestly, it's triggering for me. And I say that as a fan of her music, her fashion, her voice. I followed her for years, but I just couldn't get into Wicked, and part of that for me, at least, was because of the dramatic weight loss. And as someone who has followed her for a while, I always had this inkling that something was off when she started losing weight around the 2010s. I remember her Tumblr post of her showing off her thigh gap and legs, and some people might say it was just her losing her baby fat, but I saw it as someone who was losing the weight that teen girls tend to put on during puberty around their hips and legs and midsections. Diet culture and weight loss culture starting in middle and high school and mid-puberty is a rejection of getting older. The patriarchy's aim is for girls to maintain a small frame and physique throughout their life, to not embrace their changing bodies, and to go against time and aging through diet products and beauty treatments. For some men, it's their greatest fear, a woman who grows up to love their body no matter its size and is unapologetic about it. That scares the shit out of them. And Grande's weight has fluctuated throughout her career, and we'll never know why she is the way she is now, and that's okay. That's her life. It's private. But I also think it's okay to discuss how the reproduction of her image affects us, especially as women. For example, ad campaigns that have airbrushed away her bones. It also makes me upset to think about all these young girls who are going to watch Wicked and see how frail these actresses are and see their exposed bones and go home with those images being normalized and uplifted. And in some ways, I wonder if Erivo felt the need to lose weight to match Grande, to not be seen as bigger and therefore quote unquote less beautiful compared to Grande. That's my own speculation, so take it with a grain of salt, but I can't imagine being photographed so much next to someone who is so small and pale and then endure all the tabloids about how much bigger I was, especially as a non-white person who already faces a lot of shit for being non-white. It does seriously make me wonder what is going on that set. We don't need answers or to be rude to these individuals. They have their own private lives that are separate from the public sphere. It's not polite to comment about people's appearances and bodies. But I do think there is fair criticism out there that is genuinely concerned about how long we're going to pretend this isn't happening. On the other hand, you could argue we're not normalizing it as it's become the main focus of the Wicked discourse, people calling this out. But I will say when bones are airbrushed, yeah, that's kind of normalizing it or at least ignoring it. At the same time, maybe we should just ignore it because we don't know what they're going through and it could be really freaking bad. I just don't know. To conclude this section, all I can say is that women can never win. You're either too thin or you're too fat. So I get why it's so hard to have these conversations. And imagine if they cast someone bigger to play Glinda. What kind of backlash would that get? You're normalizing being fat. And now it's you're normalizing being thin. Though the normalization of fatness is different than normalizing thinness, as fat people are marginalized and face discrimination, which we'll get into in the next section. So there's a lot of nuance to this discussion, but I just wanted to highlight how I get why this discussion around their appearance is happening and that it should not be ignored because I think we can talk about the way their appearances make us feel as consumers of their art. Conversely, I also get why people think we should just drop the subject altogether because we don't want to regress to the early 2000s where ED discourse wasn't empathetic but sensationalist. In the end, we have no idea what these people are going through, and it's really gross to mock their body changes or speculate about their private lives. In the end, we should just let them be. So now that GLP-1s and weight loss drugs are so accessible, at least to a good amount of people, and now that fat people can lose weight and conform to beauty standards if they so desire to, it has made a certain subset of the population kind of resentful of that. Some people can't stand that fat people are losing weight with the help of GLP-1s because it's made weight loss too easy. Like, first you tell them they're gross for being fat, but now that there's a faster way to lose weight, and they're losing weight like you said they should, it's shameful because they're not doing it the right way. They're taking the easy way out. They should at least suffer in the journey to thin like the rest of us do. I think a big reason for the pushback of fat people choosing to use GLP-1s to speed up the weight loss process is because the non-fat people can no longer be superior for simply being in a smaller body, and thus they hypocritically lash out at fat people for finally conforming to society standards. And for fat people and bigger people in general, there really is no winning. They are still being shamed for losing weight while also being shamed for being fat. Conversely, because of the Ozempic trend, people who don't need to take them, for example, people who don't have diabetes or PCOS, or people who aren't obese or overweight, or don't have any other serious health problem the drug addresses, and have the money to buy it monthly with or without insurance, have caused a shortage of GLP-1s, seriously affecting people with medical conditions that require them to live. Many people are rightfully angry that thin actors and influencers, as well as regular people who get the prescription but don't have pre-existing issues that would require GLP-1, take the drug to achieve a super thin look, reminiscent of the heroin chic era from the 90s. And speaking personally, as someone who did have an ED, I remember trying all of these different weight loss and diet pills from the pharmacy that were over the counter that probably didn't do anything but mess up my intestines, but I remember specifically wanting to take this prescription drug called Ali. I don't know if it still exists, but I'm so glad I didn't take it. But I can also easily imagine my 17-year-old self doing everything I could to get a GLP-1 prescription to further my ED goals, and that is very scary and justifiably causes concern about the accessibility and popularity and even normalization of this drug. On the flip side, just because the drug could be abused and has that potential doesn't mean that it shouldn't be accessible to those who have struggled with their weight and who want to lose weight for their health or even other reasons. People who are overweight shouldn't be shamed for using them, and people who need these drugs to live should be able to get them without a fear of a shortage. And I will say, I know people who aren't obese and have EDs who have been taking GLP-1 drugs for years on and off to lose that extra 5 pounds. And that's not okay. And I do really worry about them. And these cases are a lot more common than maybe we'd even like to believe. One of the biggest problems with taking a GLP-1 drug for weight loss for non-obese and overweight individuals is that it could be the start of a lifelong dependency problem. BBC Future pointed out how GLP-1 medications help quiet your hunger signals. Once those meds are gone, your appetite can roar back even stronger. The brain becomes more sensitive to hunger cues. And most of the weight that comes back is usually fat, not muscle, which can make it even harder for your body to get back to a healthy balance. This might be something you become dependent on for your entire life, and it's not cheap. It's also not an easy decision to make for people who don't need them, but I think there are a lot of people, both public figures and private individuals, who start this journey without knowing the full risks, just in the pursuit of thinness, even if they're already at a normal weight for their body. I'm actually afraid to see the discourse if Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo gain their weight back, because that'll be a whole other moment to shame them publicly, and I hate that. That's not okay. This isn't even to say that they're on anything. But we've seen this narrative play out before where a celebrity loses a lot of weight and they're applauded and then gains it back and they're shamed and people mock them for it as if being fat is a moral failure. And that's not even to say that these two women were ever overweight to begin with. But I honestly am just so scared to see what kind of media circus will follow them afterwards because it's not going to be pretty. To wrap up, there's stigma that I think we should abolish surrounding people who use GLP-1s for weight loss because it's kind of hypocritical to shame people for trying to lose weight when we live in a fat-phobic society and they're both shamed for losing weight but also being fat. Though I guess you could make the argument that the people really using or abusing this drug for weight loss are just wealthy, normal-sized folk who want to lose even more weight as the drug is so inaccessible price-wise and you do need a prescription. There are also still overweight and obese people depending on this drug to help them lose weight too. At the same time, there's also real concerns for the general public who have caused shortages of this drug that's affected people who severely need it in order to survive in their daily lives and who are now subjected to weight loss journeys of normal-sized people becoming extra thin and thus uplifting thinness and even furthering fat phobia. So in the end, there really is no easy way to have this conversation and there's a lot of layers to it, but those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think down below. I'll never forget how in 2016 Leslie Jones said no designer wanted to dress her until Christian Siriano came in and said that he would. On Wednesday, Siriano confirmed in a statement that he would touch base with Jones, saying, "I love Leslie and I'm a huge fan of her work. I can't wait to create something special for her to wear. Hopefully I will see her in my studio this week to make something new and exciting for her to wear. I support all women no matter age or size." Octavia Spencer in 2016 said she had similar difficulty finding an Oscar gown the year she was nominated. "It's very difficult to make a woman of different sizes look as chic, as sexy without making them wear a tent," Spencer said. "Normally that's what they give you. Here's your designer dress, but it's a tent. I'm sorry, I just refuse to do that." It's not just that they're bigger women, but they're also Black women and face double discrimination. Lizzo recently lost a lot of weight through her own weight loss journey or weight release journey in which she decided to lose weight. It's her body, her choice, and though some people are calling her a hypocrite because she talks about body positivity and that's been kind of her brand, it's again her body, her choice. Let her be. I get why people would be mad about how she seemingly went back on her messaging, but you're not her. You don't know how she feels about her body or the struggle she's gone through. It's tough out there, and I actually really worry about how people will react if she gains the weight back, because that's not fun either. Sam Smith and Raven Simonet had to go through that because weight fluctuates. I think even Oprah went through that. Even Selena Gomez and Lana Del Rey and Lady Gaga have gone through weight fluctuations, and it happens. It's part of life. You're not going to be the same size forever, even though that's the societal expectation. And we should, in fact, normalize that bodies change over time. And in the end, how much of a choice is weight loss for fat people who spend their whole lives being shamed for their body? When thinness and womanhood go hand in hand, is losing weight or just buying into diet culture something we can even realistically opt out of when, if you don't conform, you're just going to spend the rest of your life being discriminated against because you can't help how your body is? Conversely, so many people think that being fat is a choice and that you can just choose to lose weight when it's not that simple. If losing weight was a choice, who would choose to be fat in this incredibly fat-phobic world? And because there is this thin hierarchy where being thin, even sickly thin, is better than being fat, it creates a world where thin people are privileged and fat people are seen as losers. And that's why we have to talk about them differently. Why fat shaming is systemic, and shaming someone who is too thin, though is rude and you shouldn't do it, doesn't contribute to the marginalization of an entire group of people who are depicted as gross and lazy and who again choose to be fat. In the end, we shouldn't shame anyone for being too fat or too thin, or speculate about what's going on with them. Don't comment on people's bodies, especially people you're not close with. You don't know what someone's struggling with, so it's better to just keep whatever comment you have to yourself. As we can see with Wicked, even people who are too skinny are shamed. Imagine how that affects someone like Lizzo and Leslie Jones and Octavia Spencer. There really is no winning no matter what you do, what size you are. You just have to live and let live. And again, if you have nothing to say, it's better just not to say anything at all. So in this video, we discussed why people are angry at Ariana Grande and how there is both valid criticism and anti-fan conspiracies fueling that fire, and how in the end we probably will never get justice for the fair judgments against her, like appropriation. And how in the current present, we should just keep any comments we have about her body to ourselves because it's none of our business. At the same time, I at least understand why people are talking about it, because there is genuine concern of what it means to consume these images and how they impact us as audience members and again consumers. Lastly, we delved into how fat phobia and thin privilege affects weight loss discourse, and how in the end, though fat and skinny shaming are different, at the end of the day it's better not to comment on people's bodies at all unless you know what's going on and unless you know them personally. So that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of it down below, and if you agree or disagree with my own personal thoughts, you can let me know. I'm sorry in advance if I got anything wrong or if I was off base with something. Please let me know. And if this is my last video for 2025, have a happy new year and I'll see you next year. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to my patrons. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.